Jon Jones is the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world and the greatest fighter ever.
Last thing.
One thing that's well known about Dana White is that he's not afraid to make enemies. Whether it's fighters or journalists, no one is spared from White's wrath. Over the years, we've seen plenty of fighters that Dana White hates. But on the flip side, there are those he seems to get along with quite well, and one of those names is Jon Jones. Despite their fair share of back and forth, it seems White can't let go of Jones. In this video, we'll uncover the real reason Dana White loves Jon Jones. Dana White has never been an easygoing guy, and Jon Jones isn't much different. Sure, Jones might look the part of a champion, but he's not exactly Mr. Friendly. The truth is, the UFC president and the UFC heavyweight champion have never been best buddies. Their relationship has publicly devolved to an unhealthy level, yet somehow they always end up back together, a rarity for many fighters. Jon Jones is a walking contradiction. At 36, he's considered both the sport's greatest fighter and its biggest cautionary tale. His public image swings wildly between hero and villain, something most UFC fighters can't afford. There's a long list of fighters who've been banned by Dana for various missteps and have struggled to get back into his good graces. Guys like Matt Riddle, Paul Daly, Jason High, Thiago Silva, and BJ Penn have all crossed the line and got cut by Dana. Some managed to find success elsewhere, but many faded into obscurity. This isn't to say they didn't deserve it, but when you compare Jones to those guys, he's arguably done worse. Yet somehow, Bones is still going strong in the UFC, defying the odds and Dana's wrath. Now, Jon Jones is widely regarded as the GOAT in MMA by most fans, but his illustrious career has been marred by controversy. Despite his unchallenged position in the octagon, his career has been marred with doping suspensions and legal troubles, which led Dana White to once question if Jones was wasting his talent with issues outside the octagon. This has made their relationship rocky over the years. See, Jones was just 23 when he became the light heavyweight champion in 2011, defeating Shogun Rua by TKO at UFC 128 and becoming the youngest belt holder in UFC history. He seemed unbeatable, and the sky was the limit. However, just a few months later, he was arrested in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for driving on a suspended license, although the charges were later dropped. However, this incident was just the beginning of his troubles. On May 19, 2012, Jones crashed his car into a telephone pole in Binghamton, New York, with two women in the vehicle. He was arrested and later pled guilty to driving while intoxicated, resulting in a suspended license. The following months saw him stay out of legal trouble, but he made history by forcing the UFC to cancel an event for the first time, UFC 151, because he refused to fight Chael Sonnen, who was stepping in for the injured Dan Henderson. In August 2014, Jones made headlines again with a brawl against Daniel Cormier during the build-up to the ultimately cancelled fight at UFC 178. Security had to intervene, and the rivalry between Jones and Cormier started to flare up. The incident was good publicity for the UFC, but tarnished Jones's image. He was fined $50,000 and sentenced to 40 hours of community service. But just a few months later, Jones's controversies would escalate even further. At UFC 182 in January 2015, Jones and Cormier finally clashed, with Jones coming out on top by unanimous decision. But days after the victory, it was revealed that Jones had failed a drug test for cocaine. He released an apology and expressed his desire to seek help, which led the UFC and his major sponsors to stand by him. However, by April 2015, Jones was in trouble again. This time, he was involved in a hit-and-run in Albuquerque, New Mexico, after crashing into a car driven by a pregnant woman who ended up with a broken arm. Jones fled the scene but was apprehended when he returned to retrieve a handful of cash. He pled guilty and avoided jail time. Less than a year later, Jones was caught on police body cam arguing with an officer after being accused of drag racing. He was sentenced to 60 hours of community service, but the worst was yet to come. Just days before he was set to headline UFC 200 in a rematch with Cormier in July 2016, Jones tested positive for clomiphene and letrozole, resulting in his removal from the event. Despite this, Dana White believed Jones's explanation, stating, "I truly believe that he didn't take a supplement that had this stuff in it, and it wasn't intentional." Jones received a 1-year suspension, but his troubles continued. In December 2018, Jones tested positive for PEDs again, just 6 days before UFC 232 was set to take place in Nevada, forcing Dana to move the event to California, disappointing thousands of fans who had traveled to Las Vegas. And it is important to note that this level of effort is something Dana only does for fighters he holds dear. But the next time Jones's name popped up for the wrong reasons was in April 2019, when he was accused of assaulting a waitress at a New Mexico strip club. He was alleged to have slapped her in the genital region, pulled her down into his lap, kissed her neck, and also put her in a chokehold and picked her off the ground. Jones denied the claims, calling them malicious lies, but he eventually pled no contest to disorderly conduct. Nearly a year later, Jones got into trouble again, this time for another DUI. That said, in 2021, Jones found himself in legal trouble on one of the biggest nights of his career. In September 2021, after being inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame, he was arrested a few hours later and charged with misdemeanor battery domestic violence and injuring or tampering with a police vehicle, a felony. Asked about the arrest, UFC President Dana White commented, "This guy's got a lot of demons. Man, a lot of demons." Many of the charges against Jones were later dropped, and he pleaded guilty to the felony tampering with a police vehicle charge, paying a $750 fine. While Jones managed to stay out of major controversy after this incident, his past actions were enough to end most fighters' careers. Despite this, Jones continued to thrive. He went 3 years without fighting between February 2020 and March 2023 due to a contractual dispute with White. When he returned to the cage at UFC 285 in Las Vegas, he fought Cyril Gane for a vacant heavyweight title. In short order, Jones made quick work of Gaines, submitting him a couple of minutes into round 1, further solidifying his claim as one of the greatest ever. After the fight, White asserted, "Listen, anybody denies this guy is the GOAT anymore, I don't think anybody would deny it. Not only is he the greatest light heavyweight ever, he looks the greatest heavyweight ever too." White's reaction, opinion, and demeanor towards Jones have always reflected a belief in his unparalleled talent, despite his past controversies. According to the UFC president, Jones remains unchallenged at the pinnacle of the sport no matter what. Now, if you're wondering why Jon Jones's actions haven't tanked his career, it's because people like Dana White won't let it happen, thanks to what Jones brings to the table. The relationship between White and Jones is symbiotic. It might be rocky at times, but it thrives more often than not. Over the years, Jon Jones has made UFC boss Dana White laugh and cry in equal measure, yet White still loves him. He even tried to overturn Jones's only loss, a disqualification against Matt Himmel in 2009 for downward elbows. Despite everything, White defends him as the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in 2024, even though Jones has only fought once in 3 years. Jones is widely regarded as one of the greatest fighters in the history of mixed martial arts. His exceptional skills, athleticism, and success in the octagon make him a valuable asset to the UFC, both in terms of sporting excellence and marketability. He's been a huge draw for the UFC in pay-per-view buys and ticket sales, especially during his peak years. There's no way the UFC would want to lose him, which is why White even moved an entire event from Nevada to California, because Jones wasn't allowed to fight in Nevada at UFC 232 against Alexander Gustafsson. Ultimately, it's all about money. If Jones brings in the revenue, White will look past his controversies. Yes, Jones is no angel, we've established that, and he doesn't have the same star power as Conor McGregor, but people still flock to see Jon Jones fight. And that's what counts for the UFC. Without Jones, the UFC would still be the biggest organization in the sport, raking in millions from gate and pay-per-view receipts. However, they're even better when they're both at their best working together. Jones needs the UFC. The UFC needs Jones. Otherwise, he would have been cast aside long before many of his controversies. As long as Jones can bring in the revenue, the White and the UFC will stand by him, no matter what. With that in mind, share your thoughts in the comments below and don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you never miss a video. See you in the next one.